Hi guys, I'm Alexandra from largefamilymama.com, and today I wanted to make a video giving you some tips and bits of advice on how to cope with homeschooling during the lockdown. This is now the third full UK lockdown that we're in, and we've been in lockdown of some sorts for over 300 days now, so this is something that's going on a lot longer than we ever anticipated, and we're all having to homeschool at the moment. And I've got 8 children. I've been homeschooling on and off for over 10 years, so I've got a little bit of experience with that, so I thought I would help less experienced people with some tips that might help you survive during this time. If you're interested in seeing more homeschool videos or videos about what life is like in a large family, then make sure you subscribe. So my first tip sounds simple, but it might not actually be that simple to put into practice, and that is to try not to be overly stressed. This is a very stressful time for everybody, not being able to see their family and friends and not being able to go out and do the things that they're used to doing, and it can be really stressful when you've got all this homeschool to do, as well as you might be working from home, which is something I do, and it is difficult to fit it all in, but you can do it. But stressing about it will never make it better. It will never improve the situation, and if anything, it just makes it worse, because then you're really ratty and then everybody else gets ratty, and there's just absolutely no point in it whatsoever. All you can do is deal with the present. That's all we have, is the present. There is no point stressing over the future or the past. What's gone is gone and done, and what's coming in the future we'll get to when we get there. Let's just deal with the present, live in the present, deal with the present, and then we will have nothing to feel stressed about. So tip number 2 is to keep a fairly consistent routine. Make sure that your routine during the weekdays have some differentiation from the routine that you have at the weekend. If there is any routine at the weekend, it could just be much more relaxed. It's entirely what you prefer, but during the week it's good to have that consistent routine. So, you know, you get up, get washed, get dressed, have your breakfast, and then you start with your lessons, or maybe you do some chores first. I don't know, everybody's different, but keep that consistency, and then when you get to the weekend it will feel like something different. So that change from going from the weekdays to the weekend actually feels like a nice reward when you do get to the weekend. The next thing is that although you may have so much to do, absolutely tons, and you feel like you've got no time for any breaks whatsoever, it is very important to keep taking breaks. So it's important not only for you but for your children as well. They definitely need to have a break during their school day. So in the morning, always have a morning break where you can just sit down together, or separately if you need to just go off in separate rooms for a while, have a drink, have a biscuit or some snack. It only needs to be 15 minutes to half an hour, and then you are ready to get back to your work and feel somewhat refreshed. Then of course make time to have lunch. So then at lunchtime, try not to just eat as you're carrying on doing the homeschooling. Just have a break, stop what the children are doing, stop what you're doing, make time to eat and talk and just relax, say for half an hour to an hour at lunchtime. And then of course it's nice to have another break in the afternoon during the middle of your lessons that you have in the afternoon, just to break that up as well a little bit. And I do find that it is always really handy to keep children from being hungry, because if they're hungry then their behaviour gets crazy. So nice to have a little snack in the morning, then have your lunch, and then a little snack in the afternoon. Something else that we like to do is we like to get our most difficult lessons, or the ones that we least enjoy, get those done first thing in the morning. Things can only get easier after that. So for us, we always like to do maths as our first lesson. We get that done, and then we have more interesting lessons to look forward to later on in the day. We like to try and save all our favourite lessons, and which is usually for us our creative lessons, for the afternoon. So we'll do art and our handicrafts and creative writing, things like that we'll leave for the afternoons. We do still do our homeschool, but it's just a lot more fun in the afternoons. So then I think another important thing is to have a clear definition of when your homeschool day is over. So I mean, you pick your time for when your lessons are over, but let's say 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're not doing any more schoolwork. So at 2 o'clock, encourage your children to finish off what they're doing, put all the school stuff away so it's completely out of sight, and then that is the school day over. Otherwise, if you have all the school stuff still out everywhere, it doesn't feel like it's ever over. So it's good to just get it completely out of sight. So for us, something that's really, really useful in keeping everybody sane is to get outside. So what we tend to do is we do our most difficult lessons in the morning. We have our morning break, then we do a few more lessons which are not so difficult, and then before lunch we go out for a walk for half an hour, and it's just really good to get outside, get some fresh air, have some exercise. It just really clears your head. It is a complete game changer. If you don't get outside, things can just get overwhelming. You're just stuck indoors and it's just there's too much noise and it's just way too much. So just go outside and take some deep breaths. If you can go for a walk, that's great, or maybe you just want to go in your garden for half an hour, whatever. But definitely try to get outside, and then after we've been outside, that's when we come home and have our lunch and then carry on with the rest of the day. Another piece of advice is to perhaps try to talk to other parents that have got experience with homeschooling. You could just talk to other parents from the school that your children go to and see how they're coping, and perhaps you could support each other in that way. Or you could talk to people that have been homeschooling before the lockdown even began. So for example, nearly every day I have a mother contacting me on Instagram and asking me for pieces of advice, and I am more than happy to always help. So you could always message me, or you could message other homeschool mums. Maybe they'll be willing to help as well. I'm not sure, I'm sure plenty will. Something else that can be really useful is to give each of your children a to-do list of what they need to be doing that day, and have a little tick box, so every time they've done their maths, for example, they can just tick that straight off, and it's just good for them to be able to see what they have got to do, what's coming next, and to see how they're accomplishing that throughout the day. That can be very rewarding for them to see in a visual format how much they are achieving. If children don't see what they've done, you know, how much they've done and how much is left, it can be very frustrating for them. They just don't understand how much longer these lessons are going to go on for, you know, especially if they're very, very young children, and it could just feel torturous. Like they don't see an end in sight. But if they have that list there in front of them, even if they can't actually read at that stage, but they can just see, oh, I've done that, I've only got a couple more things to go, then yeah, it can just help them get through the day. And sometimes they work a bit harder and a bit faster because they think, oh, I've only got to do so much more and then it'll be done. Another thing that I think is very important is if you are having a particularly bad day, or one of your children is having a particularly bad day, just take the day off. Don't force it. It's not the end of the world. You know, there are some days when I am just in such a bad mood, or I'm just so negative or whatever, and I know if I try to homeschool that day, it's going to make everybody miserable, and it will be just a day of shouting at each other, and there's no point in that, none at all. So you can just simply take the day off and just forget it for one day, and then the next day you will be so much more refreshed than if you had just tried to struggle on through. Then you'd have another bad day. So sometimes, every so often, you just have to think, I'm not doing it today, I'm not doing it, and just take the day off. It's fine, it's fine, it's absolutely fine. And my final tip is at the end of each day to just reflect on that day. Just have a cup of coffee or whatever you fancy, take 5 minutes and just think about how that day went. Where did it go right? Where did it go wrong? How could you improve it the next day? Don't feel bad about if it did go badly. Just think, well, that didn't work. I wonder why that was. Try and work it out, and then think, how could you improve it? and then aim to have a better day tomorrow. But also just reflect on how much you achieved. That, you know, you were at home all day with your children, homeschooling, something that you perhaps never intended to do, but due to lockdown you're being forced to be in that situation, and you got through the day and your children did some work, and you know, that's a huge achievement, and you should be cheering yourself on. You should be praising yourself, okay, because it's a very stressful thing sometimes to homeschool, especially if you have younger children, or you have multiple children, or you have moody teenagers, or, you know, everybody's circumstances are different. I don't know if anybody's got it any easier than anybody else. We all have our own issues. So take your time to give yourself a pat on the back and appreciate what you've done. Look after yourself, pamper yourself, you know, and if you're someone that's naturally hard on yourself and you don't think you've done well enough and all of that, then just keep thinking, well, tomorrow I'm going to improve. Each day I'm going to get a little bit better at this. Just feel proud of yourself that you are trying to do better, and that you are making such an effort, and that you do care about your children and you do want the best for them. So yes, this lockdown is a very stressful time for many people, and in fact just last week I made a video on some tips that might help you if you've got really stressed out, depressed, anxious teenagers. So I hope some of those tips were useful for you, and that perhaps they might help a little bit. If you have any questions about homeschooling, or if you feel like that you have some more advice that you could offer other people, then please leave that in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you again next time. Bye!